Buenas tardes, chicos. Buenos días. Hoy es lunes y necesitamos aprender los verbos irregulares. Ok, capítulo 4, España. Vocabulario número 1. Vocabulario 1 en el libro, página 118. 118. ¿Qué hay en tu casa? ¿Qué hay en tu casa? En mi casa hay un dormitorio. Hay un cuarto de baño y un dormitorio. En el cuarto de baño hay un lavabo. En el cuarto de baño hay un lavabo. Hay un inodoro, hay una bañera y unas toallas. En la sala, a mis padres les gusta ver la televisión. En el dormitorio, ¿qué te gusta ver? Practica en casa. These are the stem verbs, stem change verbs, present tense of stem changing verbs. Página 122. 112. Página 112. Stem change verbs have a personal ending. Okay, here's the verb querer. Querer, to want. Here's the stem of the verb and the ending. We have already learned how to conjugate regular verbs. Regular verbs are conjugated by dropping the ending and adding a personal ending. Those are the two steps to conjugate verbs. Now here's the stem, and the stem has a vowel change. It can either be O, it can be an E, a E, or another E here. En español, O cambia a UE, IE, E. All of the subjects have a stem change except nosotros and vosotros. Now, how do we know which verbs are stem change and which others are not? You're going to have to memorize the list of verbs given to you on the page 122 in your textbook. Because there's a list of different verbs that change from O to UE, E to IE, and E to I. The personal endings change according to the subject. I've already mentioned all of the verbs conjugate by dropping the ending AR, ER, or IR. There are only 3 categories of verbs in Spanish, and you drop the ending and then you change to the subject ending. According to the subject. In this case, the subject is yo, and the stem change is quiero. Here's the ending for yo, and the stem change from e here, to ie, quiero comer tacos. Now there are 3 types of stem changing verbs, like I mentioned before, 3 different ones. Stem changing verbs, change to ie, change to e, o change to ue. And you can see here the verb pensar, changes to ie, bien, pedir changes from to e, pid, and dormir changes from o to UE, duerme, depending on who the subject is. So the pronunciation from bien, pedir, changes to pid, pronunciation O, duerm, okay? Other frequent verbs to use with the to IE are cerrar. Cerrar means to close. Empezar, entender, perder, regar, tener. These are also in your book. Here's the page that you need to find in your textbook or your ebook. And go through these, take note on these changes because you will need to remember the definitions of what they each one mean, but also how do you conjugate. You need to find the verbs conjugated in your textbook. Make notes, write them down until you memorize the conjugations. That's the only way to learn another language. You take notes, you write it down several times. That's how you learn a foreign language, writing and reading. Some verbs change from to e. Yeah, here is the explanation that I was saying. All subjects in Spanish, yo, tú, él, ella, nosotros, ustedes, vosotros, y ellos, all of the subjects change the stem except nosotros and vosotros. In Spanish, we have 6 subjects. We conjugate the verb to 6 subjects, but nosotros and vosotros in the present tense do not have a stem change. And you will see that in the conjugations, okay? Now, with stem change verbs, we have 2 particular verbs that are yoga verbs. And I've explained this in the previous lesson. Yoga verbs, that means the yo form changes to go, okay? Tener and venir are those 2 verbs. That the yo form is the only one different that changes to a go. Yo tengo, tú tienes, él tiene, nosotros tenemos, and vosotros tenéis. Here's the rule that I was saying. Present tense of stem changing verbs do not change the stem, only the ending change. You see the ending follows the rule for ER verbs. We've already learned these regular verbs. And if you have not, you need to take time right now to learn them because Spanish too will be very difficult if you don't know the basics for conjugations. Ending hemos or es, and, but the stem change again for ustedes or ellos changes. Okay, these are to take note. Please make notes on this. Here's the other verb, venir. Venir means to come. Tener means to have. So venir, to come, the yo subject yo ends in go because it's a yoga verb. But the rest of the conjugations, tú vienes, él viene, or ella viene, or usted viene. Usted is formal. Nosotros venimos. Notice that the ending changes like they all do, but the stem doesn't change in nosotros, neither vosotros, because again, that's the rule for present tense, stem changing verbs. Nosotros and vosotros do not change the stem. Ustedes, ellos, vienen. It does have a stem change. The 6th subject does have a stem change, and then the ending like you normally conjugate. At this point, everybody in class for Spanish 1 should know how to conjugate the verbs in all 6 subject forms. So here's an example, an activity that we need to do to complete in order to make sure we understand. Every time we conjugate a verb, we have to check what kind of verb is this? AR verb. That's the verb they're giving us, an AR verb. So again, the first step to conjugate a verb is to figure out the category of verbs. AR verbs, you drop the ending and you change it for the subject and you add the personal ending. So the subject in this case is Beto. Beto is the 3rd person, the 3rd subject in conjugation, that is él. So we got to conjugate pensar to the 3rd person él. The 3rd person ending will be a. And the stem change is going to be ie. So this verb changes from e to ie. Beto Piensa. Piensa. There's your answer. Now, remember that all verbs have all of the verbs, you conjugate the ending, okay? But when you're looking at stem change verbs, these are all stem change verbs because that's what the lesson we're learning today. So stem change verbs have to change the syllable that is next to the ending. Notice the ending of this verb is AR. So the syllable next to the ending will be P. Right here, there's the first syllable M, the next syllable will be P, and the last syllable will be SAR. Okay? So empezar. The stem changes on this E. And this is one that changes from E to IE. Okay? Now let's continue to read this paragraph. Beto piensa alquilar. Beto thinks about renting, or Beto is thinking about renting an apartment in Salamanca. Salamanca está en España. Remember, this chapter is about España. España está en Europa. España no está en América, está en Europa. So Salamanca quiere rentar un apartamento en Salamanca porque las clases, the subject here is not Beto anymore. The subject is las clases. Look at the noun, clases. And remember, every word in Spanish has a gender. We know classes is not a person, but classes has a gender. And the gender, all the words that end in A are masculine. In this case, classes is not masculine. It's feminine because the article next to the noun tells you the gender of the noun. And the gender is feminine and it's plural. So that means we got to conjugate classes as if the subject was ellas. Like if it's ellas. Okay, empezar. So las clases, the ending, when you drop the AR ending, for ellas, AR will be AN, an. And then you look at the stem that we're going to change, E to IE. So las clases empiezan. There's the ending for ellas, and there's the stem change, IE. En pocas semanas. They start in a few weeks. Now the next word, next sentence starts with sus. This is a possessive adjective that we already learned in chapter 2. Sus amigas de Madrid, Ligia y Lucrecia, that's her friend's name. And it's two people. So it cannot be conjugated, this verb cannot be conjugated to Lucrecia because it's two people. Amigas, that's the noun, there's your subject. So the subject is ellas again, even though it's not clases anymore, but the subject here will be ellas. It's two girls, ellas. So the ending again, we'll drop the ER to add a personal ending. It's ellas, right? But the verb is not AR anymore. The verb is ER. So then the ending has to be EN, N. And then here's the stem happening. Ellas quieren venir a visitarla. Notice this here. Venir is a verb that I just showed you in the previous slide. Venir, it's a stem change verb. And visitar is another verb. But remember the rule, when you have two verbs, you don't conjugate, okay? Los fines de semana para las discotecas. So we finish with that sentence. The next sentence starts. This is why, por eso. This is, or that's why. Vera, it's a different name. Vera is a girl. Vera. Preferir. Notice that they gave us a different verb. It's not AR anymore. It's not ER anymore. It is IR verb. And the subject also changed to feminine, ella, the third person in the subject. So preferir, the ending, we drop the ending IR and we add a personal ending for ella. What does ella end when you have IR? Ella ends in E. And then the stem change, remember I explained before, when you have more than one syllable or more than two syllables, you have to see which E am I going to stem change? Which one? The one next to the ending. It's always the one next to the ending. You should be making notes right now of this, what I'm saying. because you need to remember these rules. Rules, you memorize the rules. When you're working with grammar, the best way to learn is to memorize the rules. And you have to write them down in order to memorize the rule. So here's the answer. Prefiere un apartamento con 2 dormitorios. Now, Vera no dinero. She doesn't have money. She doesn't have money. Enough money, sufficient or enough. Okay? So conjugation tener, remember the stem change and remember the ending. The ending for ella will be e again because it's ella. So it's an ER verb and it'll be e. And the stem change will have change. Ella no tiene dinero para 1 o 2 dormitorios. Pero sus amigas, her friends, remember her friends Ligia and Lucrecia, amigas. Now the subject change. We're going to use the verb decir. Decir is one of the verbs that ends in IR. We have to conjugate the ending, add a personal ending. The personal ending will have to be conjugated to the 6th subject because it's plural. The noun is plural and it's feminine. So that is ellas. Ellas en español. Okay, so ellas in the stem change will be changed to y. Dicen. Dicen. Ellas dicen que ellas pueden, ellas again, pueden dormir en el sofá si es necesario. They can sleep in the sofa if it's necessary. Así las 3 amigas, therefore the 3 friends. Notice the verb again, tener. We had this verb tener here. But here was ella. And now it's not ella, it's ellas, plural. Plural, ellas. Ellas. So the ending will be en and the stem change tienen. Ellas tienen. We already learned this verb tener in this chapter, in chapter 3. Tener. Tener que, it's an obligation. Remember, when you want to show an obligation on the sentence, you have to say they have to. They have to. And in order to make that have to, you have to add que next to it. Next to the verb que, to make it an obligation. Ellas tienen que comprar un sofá muy grande. They have to buy a big sofa. Notice the word order is different than in English. You cannot translate literal because the word order in Spanish is different. Nouns always go before the adjectives. Adjectives describe the noun. That's why they come after the noun in Spanish, because they describe the noun. Okay, now how do I know when the stem verbs change from e to e, like in this case, decir, di, dicen, or from e to ie, or from e to just regular e, there's no regular e, but there's o to ue. You have to memorize your list of verbs. Again, I say this. You have to make notes from your textbook. Página 122, make the note from there so you can see that what so many verbs they gave us. They gave us a lot of verbs for each category, changing from e to ie, and e to e, and e to or o to ue. There's a lot of verbs they gave us in the textbook for the e to ie, and the e to e, and the o to ue. Best thing I know to do is you memorize the ones from e to I, because they only gave us 3. Okay, decir, pedir, and servir. Well, they're missing repetir, which means to repeat. Repetir. There's an extra verb for this category in the book. Repetir. Okay, chicos. I hope you have a good day today, and that's your lesson for today.